Howdy, I wanted to talk about Silent Hill 2, the remake. That's right, y'all, I finally played a Silent Hill game for the first time ever. So technically I played the Xbox 2 and 3 combo that they had, but then I heard later it wasn't that good of a port or something, and then I only played like a few minutes anyway, so I don't really count that. I've seen a lot of speedruns of Silent Hill, but I've never actually played any of the games. And for me, I'm one of the few, it seems like, who enjoyed mostly all of Bloober's stuff. Medium was probably my least favorite, but I really like the Layers of Fear games, and I really liked Observer a lot. I feel that Observer doesn't get talked about enough. So playing this was a really cool experience. It reminded me, I could see a bit of Resident Evil in it. I could feel a little bit of Alan Wake to it a bit as well, so I kind of vibed with the game overall. It is really dark though. It's really dark and kind of depressing. You have to be in a certain mood to play it, and I'd heard that going into it. I know as well there's multiple endings. I've heard that ending about Dog. Didn't get to see that ending, unfortunately. I know there's like a bunch of different things you have to do or do things a certain way. I played it with the fact that I'll collect what I can collect as I go. If it's nearby for me to collect it, I'll do my best to collect it. With these type of games, I don't usually play them too often, so I was trying to get most of what I could out of it. The game took me like 10-ish, 10 to 12 hours to get through. I played it on the settings of normal difficulty with easy puzzle. Just because I knew from playing games like Tormented Souls that kind of sort of covered, and games like that are these older survival horror experiences. I love puzzles, but I'm not the best at them. And even then, through this experience, there was like twice where I got really confused on what I was supposed to do. Kind of had to look it up to figure out what I needed, and I was like, oh, I wouldn't have thought of that sort of thing. And then when I got, let's say I would say 3/4 of the way through the game, I did lower the combat difficulty to light, just because I ran across this boss that I just was not getting through. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting it out to try to get through a normal difficulty, and I couldn't quite get through it. So I changed it to light, and I ended up just kind of sticking with that for the rest of the game, just so I could kind of get through it, because I was like getting closer and closer. I could feel it. And that was the thing with this game, it's that I played it in longer sessions. It took me maybe 3 sessions to play it, but I played this for a while. A lot of the time I'll play a game in like a couple hours and then kind of dip out, so it's rare for me to play a game like 3 to 4 hour sessions, and that's what I did. I didn't even play it on the computer like I usually do. I actually played it on my TV, so it looked nice there. And overall, I don't know if I loved the story, but I had fun playing it. The animations sometimes were a little wonky though, I'll say that. There was a lot of moments and scenes where the main character where he's talking and his face was still kind of stoic, and I'm like, I'm not feeling as much emotion from you dude as I need to, considering what's going on. So that was like one of my negatives about it, is during scenes these other characters would be super emotional and then he'd be like slightly emotional, but a little stoic. But maybe that's how the original character was. Maybe that's like part of the experience. I don't know. But that kind of threw me off a little bit, especially with those intense moments. And I do love the lore building of Silent Hill. I know there's a lot of lore around it, and like getting hints of that lore as I played through. But still by the end, not being 100% sure on how things turned out the way they did. Like, I got through the story, and I figured out, okay, well, this is what happened. That's kind of explains itself. But in terms of, like, how things happen, like, how this worked, I picked up bits and pieces. By the end of it, though, I was still somewhat confused on how this came to be in certain aspects. I'm sure there's a lore video I could watch to explain this all. I'm sure there's a lore video I can watch that could explain all of this. And I'm sure that that's a thing. So I'm kind of curious to go back and rewatch the video or something and see the experience from a different perspective for it to click a little bit more. So this game, I enjoyed the combat. It did feel a little bit more Resident Evil-like to me, like a third-person Resident Evil, and a little bit of an Alan Wake as well put into it. So I enjoyed that combat. I do have this feeling that they ramped up the action in it a bit more compared to the original game, lots of more gunplay around, it seems like. And that benefited me, for sure. I definitely enjoyed kind of being able to find my way through when I could. And there was only a few moments where I got like super stuck, like the one I mentioned earlier. But overall, even on normal, I was able to make my way through and take the enemies down, even after a couple tries. Once I figured out, oh, this is what I need to do, or this is what the pattern is, it was kind of nice. I also liked the saves. At least with my experience, there was a lot of chances to save. There were certain all those saves, but there was also kind of save plastered throughout through these red blocks that were like post-it notes or whatnot. And I like the fact that when you saved, the save menu would be looking at him from the save's perspective. So if he was saving on a wall, it would look straight at him, you would see the character. Or if he was looking down the car, you would see him like looking over the save menu. So I thought that was a nice little touch. I enjoyed the sound very much. I heard these clickety clacks, and I felt like I was, you know, in The Last of Us all over again. I'm trying to listen to these things, and you could tell when one of those nurses is nearby, I'm like, oh lordy, here we go. Or you can tell when one's standing around the corner, and I'd be like slowly creeping in. I'm like, are you right here in this corner? But then sometimes you wouldn't hear anything, and then they would just come out at you, and I'm like, oh my goodness gracious me. But I did like the fact that there was always a melee weapon he had as well. There was always a melee where James could just take his little bat or his little stick and he can use it as last resort even if you ran out of bullets. The game did give me a good amount of bullets though overall. I did play on normal easy though, so I'm sure there was more availability in terms of that. Same thing with the healing items. There were a few times where I completely ran out of healing items. I'm like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. And I would luckily either find one if I died and had to go through the area. I'm like, oh, how did I miss that? Or I would just barely make it through the enemy. There was a couple times where I had to knock down this enemy or kill it, and I was like on the last sliver of health, and by pure luck I got through it. I thought the map system was decent enough. It would give you location based on where you're at physically, and it was easy too because you could bring up the map pretty much whenever, and you can actually flip through. I used like the right trigger to tab over, and you could flip between all the different maps you had. So when I was in the hospital, there was multiple floors, like there was 3 or 4 floors. I could be on floor 1 and flip the map and see what's on the other floor. So it really helped me understand the navigation. I like that James would write, oh, here's the question mark of there's something here, or here, where this particular item is, it's right here. Let me draw it and show you. I'm like, thank you. So I'm not super confused because when you're going through a lot of these areas, sometimes they're blocked off. Sometimes you have to go around to get a shortcut. Sometimes you're here. And then I'm running around being like, was I here before, or is this somewhere new? Because sometimes the hallways look the same, and I think that's part of the point of it too, where you're supposed to get a little confused. So having that map really helped a lot. There was some climbing, some going through walls, a lot of going through walls, like in between. Like, it's a little bit of a trope now for games to have you, like, sneaking through walls, especially, like, horror or action games. They like doing that in these third-person games, and that's, like, a main element of this game, it feels like. I'd be, like, sneaking my way, squeezing my body through these walls that all would happen to either be pre-knocked down, or a lot of people were rebuilding these particular size walls. I just knock it down with my little weapon and squeeze right on through. The construction of Silent Hill is very interesting, how the construction team works there in terms of what they use and how they rebuild things and not build things. Very fascinating. I like to learn the lore of that. And then, you know, then you go into the alternate universe dimension or whatever it's called of the same thing, and then the whole area looks just decrepit. It looks slightly different, but you can kind of tell, oh, this was where I was at earlier. And that sort of stuff. So I thought seeing like the alternate reality of the place I was just at was kind of cool. And I like the mystery around these characters. You know, you meet a few characters and they randomly kind of pop in here, or one sticks with you for a while. And then by the end, things either work out really well or they don't. And it goes all over the place. The pacing of the game, I thought, was good too. It had a lot of moments where it would slow down a little bit, give you a chance to breathe, then ramp you right into it and you keep going and going. But then if you're one area, sometimes you're in a location where you're like, okay, I have to these 3 different spots. I have to go to this spot, and then this spot, and then this spot. You can kind of choose which one you go in. Sometimes you have to go in a particular order, but after you were done a section, you would come back around to where you started in the hub, give yourself a chance to save, kind of recuperate, and prepare for what's next. So I felt that worked really well. Yeah, so I would say, compared to the other Bloober games, I feel like it's tied up there with me for Observer. Observer is my favorite one, I think, and I really enjoyed Layers of Fear 1 and 2. By far, way better than, like, the Medium, which was a similar kind of experience, so that's why I was curious how this was going to turn out. But I had a good time with it. Now, compared to, let's say, Resident Evil or Alan Wake 2, those I'll replay. I mean, I love Alan Wake, so I will replay Alan Wake 2 multiple times. I purchased Resident Evil 2 and 3 after playing through because I enjoyed playing through those games again. I feel like Silent Hill 2, though, and maybe Silent Hill as a whole, is the one where I won't replay. I know there's multiple endings and stuff, and even though the experience is similar, there's just something about it for me playing Silent Hill 2 where once was enough. I could watch other endings and stuff online, but I don't feel the need to play that experience again, unlike Alan Wake or Resident Evil, which for some reason those I enjoy replaying. But Silent Hill 2, I just wasn't getting that vibe. It didn't hit me, I guess, as hard as those other ones did, even though I still had a good time playing it. At the end of the day, if you've never played Silent Hill game, I feel like this is a good one to jump into, especially with the new one coming out. I'm really curious how the new one's going to be, and I'm really actually looking forward to playing the new one, especially it being set in Japan. It feels like it's got a Fatal Frame vibe without having to use a camera to take down ghosts. So I'm really excited to try that out. So yes, recommend Silent Hill 2. Not a bad first experience, I would say.